Okay, welcome everybody. Everybody had a good lunch, I hope. It is a fine day for a visit to the old courthouse in Old Denby. And here we get to like soak up the vibe a little from this place. And just for a moment, we escape the city of Newport News, just for a moment. And we relax in sleepy old Warwick County, which is nice. But don't go to sleep. I hope you've had enough lunch because our presentation coming up probably going to make you hungry. I'm thinking. The society is doing pretty well. We keep plodding along. Our membership numbers are strong. We continue to add members throughout the whole year. The members that we have, you Free Staters and Warwickians out there, you're the real pop in our soda. We appreciate you. We, the society, and as a whole, we all want you to feel like you get your money's worth out of this endeavor that we're in here. So it's a small annual membership fee, but we want to earn that, not just go through the motions and whatever. So we want to keep people happy, and sometimes you guys are kind of hard to keep happy. So as an additional enhancement to your membership this year, we're adding a December program. We're going to go one more this year, partially because we had a really wonderful speaker step up and say he wanted to do it. So we're going to go ahead and let that happen. It is Michael Steen from the Watermen's Museum is going to talk to us about Benedict Arnold. That sounds interesting to me. All right, so right here in downtown Denby, we're going to do that. We've had a lot of fun this year. You might remember we started off the year in March. I had to do a dog and pony show. Our speaker didn't show up, but it was kind of fun. And then April we had John Erickson from St. Luke's Church. That seems like so long ago now. And in May, we went to the Lee Hall Depot and entertained by Michael Moore there. That was a wonderful event. It was really fun. We've had many great programs since then. And on the new edition of Mulberry Island Notes, which I'm going to hand out in just a minute, page 2 has all of them kind of listed, so you can go back through them there. I would like to thank Ms. Dawn Worsham for her continuing contributions. She's done a great job with her articles. We've had those in the lead all year long, so we've used her articles again today. Got that. And another young man I want to recognize, Mr. John Jones, who opened up his files on his late father. Quite the interesting character you will read in the newsletters. John's father, Sonny, was quintessentially Warwick County, if there is such a thing. Hey, how you doing? All right, fashionably late. All right, so next season we're going to focus as much as possible on the events of 250 years ago for obvious reasons. I know we have several programs booked already, so we have to see you all next year. But before that, I want to see as many of you as we can in December. We're going to do the event with Michael Steen, and we never do any Christmas themed stuff. We'll bring Christmas cookies and stuff like that. It'll be fun. We'll do that. One other piece of news, our Vice President Henry has stepped down. He and Dale's continuing health issues contributed to that. And I think he sort of just lost some of the wind out of his sails. So that happens. But I want to recognize how great he was as an officer for us. He was instrumental in getting our bylaws and our procedural manuals written. He worked on the museum next door, had it set up really beautifully before the city came and wiped it all down. And they used to hold open house days over there, which was nice. So Henry is going to move on. We will miss him. And we're going to open up nominations from the floor. Anybody wants to be a VP of this group, we can. You're welcome to nominate yourself, or you can nominate someone just to annoy them. I don't care. So just get with me after the presentation. You guys have any ideas about a good VP? So the society as well, we seem to have money. Sharon, we have money? Okay, we're good. We continue to catalog Warwick's history. We have a new Mulberry Island Notes and another one underway. How did I word this? We have all of you deceptively kind souls to support us. You don't look like you're kind, but you are, that's what I'm saying. And we memorialize those that have moved on from us as well. So from the society, a ginormous Warwickian thank you to everybody here. Thank you to everybody. And without further ado, Are there any other business from the society? Any business from members? Anybody want to bring anything up? Did you want to tell us how that meeting went?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Some people have asked about the fundraiser that the Lee Hall Train Station Foundation had this month, or actually last week, last Thursday night, at the Boxwood Inn. And it was a joy, it was a pleasure. We had 24 individuals turn out. We ate in the upper front two parlors. And our speaker, Joyce Robinson, who came from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, was just fabulous. And so it was a wonderful time. And if we do it again, I hope some of y'all will be available next time.
Okay. All right, we're going to welcome, without further ado, our speaker today. One of our members, a very fancy lady, full of charm, Grace, here to entertain and educate us today. And I'm sorry I don't have a better introduction for you than that. Okay, Mary's got it. Let her introduce herself.
I have a much better introduction, including her name. This is my friend Rebecca Surdek, who we've had her speak to us before. You may remember her as Mary Buck, the wife of the first minister at Jamestown. And she is a Virginia historian. She's an educator. She is a living historian par excellence. She grew up in Colonial Williamsburg, also in Newport News. She worked for CW many years, and in fact, she also cut her teeth, Jillian, in the Virginiana room of the Main Street Public Library. So she has published several different books, and her knowledge and her wealth of programming is just so amazing. I have several pages that I could go on about her. I don't know that you want all that, but she undertakes so many projects, and all of them are just labors of love. But today, her focus is on, and this is one of the favorite things she does, is various domestic skills that were very common to women, Virginia women in particular. One of the programs she does is campfire cookery. In fact, she was just at Scotchtown last week doing hearth cooking, and if you haven't had a chance to see that, it's pretty amazing. She also makes her own perfume, and I've heard her give that program to my DAR. But she is always on the go. She also has several publications. One pertains to churches of Virginia. She's been very active in trying to find where all the original colonial parishes were in Virginia. And that's a labor of love as well. And she, during COVID, on her own, she researched the Virginia Gazette, and that indexed all the issues that were not available. So again, labor of love. One of her most recent efforts involves a book that was Virginia's first cookbook, and that's what she's going to talk to you about today. So I don't want to go into that too much, but again, another gift to the community. She is very well known for so many of her pursuits. In fact, she was the recipient from the DAR. They awarded her the National Medal of Distinction for the many things that she has done. Her living history portrayals, and just so many things in the field of history, specifically women's history and Virginia history. She's a graduate of Virginia Tech with a degree in history and education. Also, rare book librarianship. This probably sounds a little familiar to you. Photography, photograph and paper conservation, and archaeology. And as I say, her resume just goes on and on. Any big shoddy place you can name, she's been there, done that. But she started here locally, so we claim her as one of our own. In fact, she grew up in North End. She's a military brat, but her family lived at 5600 Huntington Avenue, the old Walter Post House, the first mayor of Newport News. So very, very cool. And in any case, there's one other thing I want to share with you. She has also, she is the curator of something called Archive Williamsburg. And as part of this and her Sacred Heritage Foundation, she is coalescing all this information that she has found to make it available digitally to the public. So She and her husband, Mike, also have a company where they go out and do entertainments, a little bit of everywhere, from puppet shows to living history to, I know I've performed with you with the Williamsburg Waits a couple times, but there's a little bit of everywhere. Anything you can think of, the living Christmas tree, you name it, she's out there, they're doing it, and they're just marvelous. So we are so fortunate for her to be with us today to talk about 200 years of Virginia foodways, and I understand before it's over with, somebody will be asked to volunteer to assist with preparing something up here. So just expect to possibly raise your hand. You're called upon and tie on your apron. Thank you. Rebecca.
Thank you, Mary. I'm so flattered to hear you say what I do. And I do all of those things and more to support my history habit. Right? History is my love, history is my passion, and I do lots of tangential things to make a living. Yeah. But today, it's all about food. So apropos that I'm meeting with you all after lunch. So again, my name is Rebecca Serdick. Virginia history is my passion, and I love talking about things that I'm interested in. And I'm interested in food. I love to cook, I love to eat. In fact, this weekend we were up at Patrick Henry's home called Scotchtown. It's the biggest event I do of hearth cooking all year. We were there 8 hours each day, cooking over a fire, roasting, baking, recreating 17th, 18th, and early 19th century recipes. So I grew up cooking over a fire. My mom was one of the educators back in the 70s and 80s at Colonial Williamsburg, and I grew up in her shadow. We cooked over a fire at home. We still do Thanksgiving over the fire. My husband, well, he knew what he was marrying when we got married. But I told him several years ago, about 20 years ago, I wanted a hearth in the backyard, and he thought I was joking, and I'm, no. Now, I now have an 18-foot shed full of all of my cast iron and reproduction cookbooks. And when I worked full-time for Colonial Williamsburg, we were asked all the time, hey, can you come to such and such historic site and do a demonstration? And when I was an employee full-time, we had to say no because we were proprietary to Colonial Williamsburg. When things changed and I became a contracted educator, I could go to other historic sites, and that was a scary transition for me, but I made the most of it. We've taught all over the East Coast at historic sites, mostly 18th and 19th century sites, and when I was recreating the menus for each site, we tried to make it regionally appropriate. So when I cook in Smithfield, we cook at Chip Oaks Plantation, St. Park now. Of course, we have to have pork. And so we're roasting pork over in a tin kitchen. If you don't know what that is, I have pictures. It's an 18th century reflector oven. And it smells so good, I say it would convert a vegetarian, because it does. It converts vegetarian. When we cook up in Maryland, near Annapolis, there's an 18th century site called London Town. We incorporated crab. So I did a deep dive in 18th century crab recipes. And one of my favorite things is crab dip. So I was trying to find the 18th century documentation for crab dip. And I have to tell you a funny story, and then we'll get to the book. I never know who's going to come to my classes. People sign up online, and usually it's adults. Sometimes it's, you know, a dad and a daughter, or a mom and a teenager. But this one time, it was, it's, you know how 2020 dates are stuck in your mind. This was March 8th, 2020. It was the last one we did before you know what. And I had a dad and the teenage daughter. And the teenage daughter was like this the whole time. It was his weekend, if you know what I mean. She did not want to be there, but the dad loved history. The dad wanted to have this bonding moment with his daughter. So we're roasting meats, we're baking bread, making cheese, making salad. And I got to the crab dip, and we had sauteed butter all day with onions. And right before we served it, according to the recipe, we mixed in crab and served it on toast points. And so when we got to the point at the end of the class, we were all sitting down and eating. The dad said, come on, just try it, just try it. She's like, and the dad said, come on, just try it, just have a little bite. So she goes, she has one piece of toast with one little spoonful of crab, and she eats it. And then she does this. And she proceeded to eat the rest of the crab. Anyway, so it was funny because none of us got any more crab. The rest of that did because she ate it all. It was funny. But it's fun for me because we've taught from South Carolina, Florida, Delaware, Maryland, all over Virginia, up to Maryland, Delaware, even one site in Maine. And it's fun for me to do a deep dive into the recipes that exist from the 18th century. Now, these recipes exist primarily in two different forms. Some of them have been printed, and some of them are one-of-a-kind handwritten recipes that exist in now university libraries. So have I spent many an hour at university? Yes, I have, which is one of my favorite things to do when I have time. And when you look at these recipes, I'm looking for regional things. There are some commonalities. And I say it's very much like a magazine at the grocery store. Like when you're in the checkout line, things that are of the interest of homemakers and home cooks. So it's traditionally the woman of the house, but of course anybody can cook, right? So it's about 85% food content and about 15% things of a general interest to a wife, mother, and home-based cook. So that model goes back. And so I'm looking at these handwritten recipes and trying to sort out regional menus, and it's that same pattern. In fact, Mary mentioned that I'm a perfumer. I am a perfumer because of these antique collections of recipes. And so I keep deep diving in. I know other people have done this, but I became kind of known for doing this because as we started teaching in historic sites, the word got out. I've trained staffs, I've gone up for private classes. In fact, Sunday was a private class for our family. But usually it's museum education programs, either representing the museum or training the staff for the museum. Well, one of my favorite resources, you're gonna love this, is Mary Randolph, the Virginia housewife. So let's talk about Mary Randolph, the Virginia housewife. For people who study 18th century history, Virginia history, or if you just like to cook, that's probably a name you may have heard before. The book, of course, is in public domain, so it is available in the gift stores like Yorktown and Williamsburg and Jamestown, of course, would have a copy of this cookbook. Well, I've been cooking from her cookbook for as long as I can remember, even going back to the 70s and 80s. That was something my mom always had on the shelf that we would look to, even if it's just a Sunday afternoon at home. It doesn't have to be Thanksgiving, but we would cook from these historic recipes, sometimes in the backyard over a fire. Well, this book was published in 1824. So this is 2025. So last year was the 200th anniversary of the reissue of this cookbook. I work with a small group of former museum educators, former librarians that are forming a publishing company called Virginiana Press. You can guess why I call it Virginiana Press, because I used to work at the Virginiana Library. And I'm sorry, I feel like I'm rambling, I'm nervous, I don't know why. And in honor of the 200th anniversary of 1824, we were working to reissue Mary Randolph's Virginia Housewife Cookbook. And I was arranged to be the editor and the writer of the history content and the writer of the glossary. So I was able to do a deep dive into one specific resource, which is a Virginia resource. And I just want to talk about it. I want to share the good news about this book because it's a phenomenal cookbook. It's a phenomenal cookbook because of the recipes, but also because of the history. Let's talk about women publishing recipes. This idea is rare, but we can find it even going back to the late 17th century in England. There are highly educated women publishing their recipes, but they're publishing recipes that are what we would consider to be English recipes. This is even happening in 18th century colonies in North America with Hannah Glass, right, which is a pretty famous Hannah Worley and Hannah Glass. After the American Revolutionary War, there's the first American cookbook published by Amelia Simmons, who was a domestic servant in Connecticut. She was an orphan and she lived her life in service. She publishes English recipes as a way to support herself. The Amelia Simmons cookbook is considered the first cookbook published after the American Revolutionary War. But she is repeating English recipes, so it is significant, but we can only improve on this story. So let's talk about Mary Randolph. Raise your hand if you know the name Mary Randolph. I don't know if I'm preaching to the choir here. All right. So who is Mary Randolph? Who are the 18th century Randolphs? Probably the wealthiest, one of the wealthiest families in Virginia. I don't know how many tens of thousands of acres they owned, but they were land rich, is what we would say. So they're blue-blooded Virginia, the Virginia Randolphs. Mary Randolph is the aunt of who? Thomas Jefferson, that's right. Thomas Jefferson lived in the home of Mary Randolph. Her home actually still stands. It's in the Richmond, Virginia area, a place called Tuckahoe. It is privately owned, and how the light bulb did go off when I'm talking about Mary Randolph, and it occurred to me while I'm in a class in an 18th century log cabin up in Fauquier County, and I thought, the house still stands, why am I not cooking there? Well, I am now. So the house still stands. Once the light bulb went off, I called them the next day, which is privately owned. It is a wedding venue for wealthy Richmond families and brides. And I called and I said, I'm a food waste historian, former Colonial Williamsburg educator, second generation, and I'm very interested in Mary Randolph. And can I come and visit your site? And they said, sure, when do you want to come? And I was like, really? How about this week on Wednesday? So 2 days later, I'm up at that site. Not only does the brick kitchen where she cooked still exist, they still have fires in it. There are people that live on property, like the groundskeepers live on property, and they still use the kitchen as an 18th century kitchen. They're not historians, they're not demonstrators. They just like cooking over a fire. So I'm going in there and the angels are singing. And friends, let me tell you, it's all still there. The cast iron is still there. The crane is still operational. There's a bread oven. This is one of the wealthiest people in 18th century Virginia. And this kitchen still stands. And I said, I've been teaching from her cookbook for years. And I'm going through the cookbook, and of course the woman I'm meeting with is the groundskeeper. She's not a historian. She didn't even know that there was a cookbook written at this property. But let me tell you the significance of this cookbook. But I'm going through and I said, where's the herb garden? She says, oh, it's right there. I weeded it this morning. I'm like, oh my gosh. And all the herbs are still, granted, it's been replanted and tended through the years. I said, where's the ice house? She showed me where the ice house is. Because when you read the recipes, they talk about how to cook, so how to harvest the herbs, where to get the ice, what to do with the lettuce when you harvest it, how to take care of your chickens. I said, this is all in the book that I've been teaching from, and here I am standing in her home, in her kitchen, in her herb garden, and it's all still there. I said, let's work together. We've got the 200th, this was several years ago now. I said, we've got the 200th anniversary of this cookbook coming out, in a few years. Now it's 2024, and I said, let's work together, and we did. And it's been very exciting for me. I retyped the entire book. I did a deep dive on her family. I worked with the current owners and management of Tuckahoe to reissue this book, working with Virginiana Press. And friends, let me tell you, this is not only the first cookbook published in Virginia, it's not the first cookbook published in the South, it is the first international cookbook ever published. So the question you might be wondering is, why is one of the wealthiest women in the South, or in Virginia, why is she publishing? Why do you think she's publishing? Let me do this. Well, let's talk about that. So her nephew is Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson grew up in their home. So he grew up with his aunt and his uncle. In fact, if you can ever go to Tuckahoe, you can actually see where he lived. You can see the home. You can go inside when they have public day open house. Because they have the school where his tutor came, where Thomas Jefferson was educated. Wow, it's all still there. Of course, he elevates, he goes through his education, goes where? To college? Of course, William and Mary, he becomes the president of the United States, of course, we all know that. But he feels a debt of gratitude to his aunt and uncle for the two people that raised him. So as Thomas Jefferson elevates through his career, he promises his uncle a job in the newly formed republic, right? And for some reason, they didn't see eye to eye on some political matters, which we're not going to talk about that now. So the job never comes through. Right. So we have one of the wealthiest families in Virginia. They have all the land, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but tens of thousands of acres. But the truth is, by the early 19th century, they didn't have any money. They had land, they had property, they had a beautiful home, but they didn't have any money. So it's the lady of the house that does what she has to do. They start renting out the rooms on the second floor of their house, above stairs, right? They had a second property on Carey Street. And oh, how I wish this property still stood. It was what we would call a B&B, or they call a tavern. So where places where people could rent rooms and meals were provided. And to give this historic context, Edgar Allan Poe was one of her tenants. That's Richmond right there, 1820s, right? There's a ballroom that's written about in the papers. Of course, the structure is long gone, but it's a long ballroom lit with candles and mirrors and place for the orchestra and a harpsichord, right? And it's all there in the written record. But so we have the lady of the house, Mary Randolph, doing what she can do, doing what she has to do to get some money in. They start renting out the rooms. They're managing this second property. In fact, she's trying to manage food. She's credited with inventing a refrigerator. So Mary Randolph, Richmond, Virginia, 1820s. It's first patent for refrigerators. She becomes known for her food, for her hospitality and for her food. Her recipes are so popular, people are coming just to eat there. That's not all. Her recipes are being published in the Richmond newspaper in the early 1820s. 1824, she compiles all of her recipes into what we call the Virginia housewife, the proper method of cookery, right? This is not just English recipes, there are French, German recipes, there are Spanish recipes, recipes from India, recipes from Africa, and Native American recipes. It's the first time it's ever been published, again, by a woman in 1824, Richmond, Virginia. By that time, they're living up in Washington, D.C. at the site that becomes Arlington Cemetery, so that's a humbling place to go. The home site still stands. The Arlington House was her final residence. But I love this because she's doing what she has to do. And friends, let me tell you, the food is delicious. I've cooked from it. Granted, I don't cook all of the things. I don't cook calves' heads and mutton. But chicken, yeah, she has chicken curry with rice. Who doesn't love chicken curry with rice? She has the first printed recipe for ice cream, for lemonade, for donuts, for fried chicken. She's the first to do it. So Mary Randolph, 1824, Richmond, Virginia. The book is all about how to run a household in the early 19th century, and working with your servants is what she calls them. So if you're interested in hearing, I won't quote her, but I'll invite you to read it, how one of the wealthiest women in Virginia delegates her chores, her household duties, to her servant community. So you're welcome to read that. That's fascinating. So it's not just food. Any questions about the history? Again, I've been teaching from this cookbook for many years, and I thought it would be fun to recreate one of the dishes right here. My favorite, what I always put in every class where I teach, is her salad, one of her salad dressing recipes. So I thought we could make that today. Now, if you have spoons and knives or forks, keep them if you want to sample the salad. So, unless there's any questions about the history, we'll get to the hands-on, the cooking part, or the preparation part. A lot of knowledge. Oh, thank you. All right, so may I ask for one volunteer? It's very, very simple. And I do have handouts of the recipes, and I do have reproductions of the cookbook if anybody's interested, with the Virginiana Press cookbook. So, I need one volunteer. I will. So I thought what we would do is recreate my personal favorite recipe from this collection, page 119, to dress salad, or salad. So it's a salad dressing. She talks about how to harvest the salad greens. She talks about how to flavor it. She makes an early form of mayonnaise, and then flavors it with multiple vinegars and multiple herbal vinegars. So again, the first time I saw her home and saw her kitchen, and I'm standing in the herb garden, I don't think my feet touched the ground, because there's the tarragon. I've been teaching about her tarragon for years. So let's try it.
Look out, Julie Jones.
So here it is. And I have handouts on these half pages if anybody wants. I've got the transcription from 1824 and a modern redaction that meets modern standards for recipes. Mary, would you like to read the 1824 version?
To have this delicate dish in perfection, the lettuce, pepper grass, chervil, cress, and etc. should be gathered early in the morning, nicely picked, washed, and laid in cold water, which will be improved by adding ice. Just before dinner is ready to be served, drain the water from your salad. Cut it into a bowl, giving the proper proportions of each plant. Prepare the following mixture to pour over it. Boil 2 fresh eggs 10 minutes. Put them in water to cool. Then take the yolks in a soup plate. Pour on them a tablespoon of cold water. Rub them with a wooden spoon until they are perfectly dissolved. Then add 2 tablespoonfuls of oil. When well mixed, put in a teaspoon of salt, 1 of powdered sugar, and 1 of made mustard. When all these are united and quite smooth, stir in 2 tablespoons of common and 2 of tarragon vinegar. Put it over the salad and garnish the top with the whites of the eggs cut into rings. And lay around the edge of the bowl young scallions, young ones, no, they being the most delicate of the onion tribe. Do you want the modern version?
All right. I don't think so. All right, so that sounds poetic, doesn't it? I love some of these recipes. Even if you don't cook them, it's kind of fun just to read them. There's an onion soup recipe that I use to melt the butter until it stops sizzling. There, but she has some attempt at units of measure, so that's good. So let's do the first step. All right, so the first step, actually I guess I'll give you my apron. Here you go. So we're going to take the eggs and we're going to slice them. So I love this because she talks about using the entire egg, and I'll show you what that means. So we're going to use the yolks, which is the yelk or the yellow, right? We're going to make the mayonnaise with that, and then we're going to keep the whites off to the side. You can go around twice. So I've got some hard-boiled eggs, and here's a knife. Go ahead and slice them thin. Like a missile. Yeah. All right. With no regard for her personal safety, she is now slicing the hard-boiled eggs into rings. So we're going to pop out the yellows and put those in the bowl. And while she's doing that, I'm going to talk about another food fashion, another food trend. It's a little older than this. And it coincides with early days of Jamestown. So late 16th, early 17th century, there's this major, just a little aside, major love affair with English cooks and Italian food. So English food, you know how we have food trends? Now cupcakes, everything's cupcakes. In late 16th, early 17th century England, there's this food trend of Italian food. It's the first time we're finding recipes for pasta in England. Not tomatoes, not so much garlic, but pasta. And Parmesan cheese is the first time we're seeing that. So there's this trend to dress the salad in the Italian fashion, which is what we're going to do. Meaning we're going to make the dressing in the bowl, and then we're going to top the greens and stir it the whole time. That's dressing in the Italian fashion. All right, so she's got it sliced beautifully. Go ahead and take out the yellows and put the yellows in the bowl. All right, so to have this delicate dish in perfection, the lettuce, watercress, peppergrass, chervil should be gathered first thing in the morning. So does everybody do that first thing this morning? I did. I went to Food Lion, and I got that. But I love that she says you can add ice. So again, when I went to Taco the first time, they showed me where the ice house is. It's not an ice house anymore. It's like, oh, that's what they would have done. Excellent. So the yolks are in here. And the whites are here. We'll save these for the end. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is add. So we've hard-boiled the eggs, right? And then let's see. Instead of a wooden spoon, I'm going to use my rubber spatula because I can sterilize that. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of oil, which I have pre-measured, and this would be olive oil. Which is mash it like that. I love this. Yes. So what kind of oil was used? There was common oil, and this recipe just calls for oil. Olive oil. Get the best olive oil you can afford. Olive oil was even the jugs for Spanish olive oil have been found at Jamestown. The white, the double handle, and usually there's a pink star on it. So yeah. So olive oil, even though it's from Spain, right? But they're importing the good stuff. So wine is coming from Spain, and the olive oil is coming from Spain. Yeah.
You said something about powdered sugar, confectionery sugar. So didn't realize that they had.
Right. So the sugar, how was sugar transported, or how was it sold in the 18th century? In a cone. The only place I've seen them in our lifetime is in some international grocery stores in the Spanish section. Just saying. It's a cone like that. Some of them can be like that big, like a little Christmas tree shape. So powdered sugar, what that means, because you're buying it hard, they would use the back of a knife and scrape it off. So I've already done that part, so we don't have waving knives flowing around up here. So I've pre-measured it. And powdered, that just means it would be a lot of little shapes. I guess you could put it in a mortar and pestle and make it finer.
So basically you made sugar into what you need powdered sugar.
Yes. So the sugar would come wrapped in paper in that cone shape, and other recipes that use the back of a knife to scrape it off. Not the sharp end of the knife, the other side. Good question. Yeah.
How much is yolk or milk? Milk, I haven't heard of yolk. That's what we said. Our chicken's plum point.
Your chicken's called yelk?
Our chickens lay eggs with yolks, and nobody else had ever heard of it. And I think you said that.
Yep. So in this recipe, Mary Randolph refers to the yellow of the egg as Y-E-L-K, yelk. We would call it yolk, or yellows, I guess. Let's check on Mary. Perfect, all right. So you want to show everybody? So we've got yellow mush, yay. That's the oils with the oil. A tablespoon of salt and sugar, all right. So the next part, what we just did, did I turn it off? Is that better? Oh, there we go. So we've added the salt and the sugar. So we talked a little bit about the sugar. In our lifetime, I used turbinado sugar that I ground in a mortar and pestle. But of course, you can use modern powdered sugar if you want. And for the salt, I use what we can get in our lifetime, which is the best salt I can find, which is Redmond's real salt. It has the natural minerals in it. That's what I use when I cook daily. And I'm trying to eat or cook historically accurately and for nutrition too. So that's a mineral-based salt. And I've got it up here if you want to see it. I've actually made salt, so I know how to make salt. So yes, I've been in 17th century clothing in Virginia Beach with a bucket. That was me. All right, so 2 tablespoons of oil, added sugar. Okay, mustard. Mustard. That's good. So this recipe calls for made mustard, and I'm just using stone ground Dijon mustard from any grocery store. But if you ever want me to do a mustard class, I would love to do a mustard class. Mustard was a very popular condiment. In fact, there were gentlemen's accessories with little mustard spoons. All right, I love mustard. So we've got a spoonful of that, and then 2 different vinegars. The modern redaction calls for apple cider vinegar, which we all know and love, and tarragon vinegar. So tarragon is the licorice of the herb family. So I hope you love this as much as I do. This has got a licorice flavor to it. So we're going to add a splash of apple cider vinegar. That's going to give it the kick. And the tarragon vinegar I've actually made. It's white wine vinegar with tarragon in it, and then you put it in the fridge and come back later. And it pickles in itself, and it's delicious. I have made it for years, and I give it as gifts. I love it.
It's okay, that's the
We had a class doing that. I didn't know what written that on. And this one was very first one, my first day.
All right, so here's our
Huh?
All right, so she's made the dressing. What we're going to do now is put the greens from Food Line in the dressing. We'll top it, and if you want some, you're welcome to sample it. 1824 recipe, Mary Randolph. And I do have handouts if you want to take a flyer, and I do have copies of the reproduction cookbook. I'm selling those today if anybody's interested. All right?
Mary, I got,
20.
Rebecca, I have a question. I always thought that Jefferson's home was Shadwood. I never got mixed up.
So all I know about where Thomas Jefferson grew up was, I guess, his young years, his childhood years were spent at Tuckahoe. In terms of Shadwell, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I don't know.
That makes me feel better.
It's possible that's where his family lives, actual mom or his parents lived. Yeah. I know what he ate more than where he lived, sorry. I'm going to wash my hands and then we're going to rip up the salad. Mary Randolph and other 18th century cooks also comment on you never use a knife on lettuce, you rip it. So I just washed my hands and we're going to rip up the lettuce. That was pretty good. You want to walk around and show the rest of the salad? It's really good. You can try it on the salad. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to rip up the salad, put it in there. Mary's going to mix, mix, mix. We're going to coat every piece of lettuce in the Italian fashion. And then we're going to top it with the egg whites. She does talk about making your food pretty attractive. All right, let's do that.
I agree.
I wasn't sure.
Rebecca, I learned that the salad, greener the lettuce, the more vitamins it has. Darker.
I didn't hear you say it again.
The darker the lettuce, darker green the lettuce, the more vitamins it has.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So the darker the lettuce, the more health benefits it has than like white iceberg. I love with the hard-boiled eggs on top. It's just so easy. It's organic. We were back. All right, so to finish the salad, we're going to decorate the top with the egg whites. What I might do is chop them up some more, because we've got a nice big group. I'll chop them up so everybody can get a little bite of the egg. In my opinion, the hard-boiled egg with this licoricey salad dressing, I love it. So hopefully you love it too. So there's our salad.
It's like lettuce in a bowl.
I'll chop it. Where's the knife?
Did not keep your
got some paper bowls, and Mary's gonna look for more. Might not be your whole lunch, but you can get a little taste. If anybody wants to try it, come on up. If you happen to have a place, hopefully you love it. Yes, I think it's like 25 also. Thanks for being here for